right, good afternoon, everyone. I have 2:01 on my clock, and I just see everybody coming in and listing where they're from. But I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am Elizabeth Renfro. I am a Family and Consumer Science Extension agent here at the University of Tennessee in Washington County. So I am located in the Johnson City area, which is where Virginia and North Carolina kind of come together with Tennessee. So I'm in that like upper east corner of Tennessee. So today, what I am presenting on is cooking for one or two, but we call it meals for you and me. I think it's a little bit more friendlier and fun type of name for this type of class as well. Um, so to kind of kickstart us off, I believe there is a poll, but if you'll take that poll real quick, and while you're doing that, so this was actually a project that an intern that I had with me back in 2022. This was her project. We had a lot of requests for this type of programming, and there was just nothing traditionally set for it. So this was her project for the summer, was to actually put this together. And at the end, I believe you'll get a follow-up email that will actually have the cookbook that I'm going to show you that she put together for us. So the intern was Amanda Huggins, and she is actually now a extension agent with us. She enjoyed her time so much with us that she decided to become an extension agent with us with the University of Tennessee Extension. So a lot of times, just kind of we'll kickstart by looking through the cookbook of what you're going to get. So of course, there's a table of contents. There's some tips on how to convert larger recipes into smaller ones. Some conversion charts for you all of cutting recipes in half or in thirds. As well as some common substitutions, some cooking terms, seasonal fruits and vegetables. Now realize these seasonal fruits and vegetables are for the Tennessee area, probably North Carolina, Virginia would fall underneath that as well. So you would probably want to reference whatever state that you are living in, what consider your seasonal fruits and vegetables at that time. Also, a little bit how to reduce food waste. And so I'm going to delve a little bit into those best by, use by dates, as well as freezing foods. Also going to have you take a look at the different recipes. And then she also talks about, or she put in some note pages and a little bit of nutrition facts and also kitchen utensils that you might actually need for the specific recipes that you plan on making. So is the recipe that she put together. So this is a digital copy. So you all, like I said, will receive this at the end via email. And so if you are coming back and you're watching this as a recording on YouTube and things like that, just feel free to reach out to us at the email towards the end of the presentation, and we can get that sent over to you as well. So some of the things that of this table of contents that we're going to look at, I've already listed a lot of them, but I had her break it up into different types of meals. So we have breakfast, we have entrees, we have sides, small bites, as well as seasonal. We also have crock pot friendly, Instapot friendly, air fryer friendly, kid friendly meals for four more people, and then also desserts. Everybody likes desserts. So there is a section in there as well for that. But one of the recipes that we are looking at today is going to be a crock pot friendly recipe as well. So we'll go over this tip sheet here in a little bit, but this is also part of it is some tip sheets of how to convert larger recipes and scale those down into being able to cook for one or two people. Also part of this is, with cooking, a lot of people don't realize they have the question of, if you remember growing up and in math class. Why do I need to learn this type of thing? Why do I need to learn math? And so it is very helpful in cooking and baking. And so she has, if it had the original recipe, if it called for half a cup, what would that be if you had to cut it in half? And what would that have to be if you had to cut it in thirds as well? She also put some basic kitchen conversions in here as well. So from teaspoons all the way up to if you can do it in gallons or vice versa. So that can be very helpful for individuals as well too. And then just some common substitutions. So we sometimes get a lot of questions of, well, I don't happen to have buttermilk or I don't have any cornstarch. What can I use in place of that? And how much can I use in place of that? And so she was kind enough to put that together as well as part of this cookbook. There is a couple of pages of that as well. And then just different cooking terms. So if you're not, familiar with cooking terms, or, you're just getting started into cooking and it's, something that you really enjoy, there is, she also put some of those cooking terms and definitions of what they mean. If you have questions with certain recipes that might have those terms. And then just the different seasonal fruits and vegetables. Like I said, this is a lot more for Tennessee, and probably Virginia and North Carolina would fall similar, or at least the southern states. So it's important to reach out to your local extension office in your state to see what is those local fruits and vegetables that are in season in your area. We're also going to go over some of those how to reduce food waste, but she has a lot more listed in here as well. And then, of course, the notes page. And then we get into the recipes. So I'm not going to go over every single recipe. I'm not going to go through every page. But, she has a vast assortment of different recipes in here. So starting off with breakfast, she's got smoothies and parfaits in here, the banana bread for one. I've done the cheesy vegetable frittata for groups when I have taught this program for people in my area. People love this. This is probably one of their most favorite recipes, is this cheesy vegetable frittata. And then the other one that I do is the raspberry French toast cups as well. They love, if this is something, if you're having a brunch with friends and family over, or if you need to take a dish to a function or something like that, these two are really good to take with you all. The one that we are actually going to do today, and I'm just going to jump to that, is that chicken pizza casserole that I'm going to show you all here after I go through the rest of the PowerPoint as well. And so this one is really easy to make. I've already kind of pre-cooked. I've already made, I should say, a recipe of it, but I'm going to show you how to kind of put it together, and then you'll see the end product of what it looks like for that. So we will jump back into the PowerPoint slide here. So converting those larger recipes. So a lot of times we have favorite recipes, whether it is family recipes or a friend gave it to you or something like that. And it's always, feeds 8, 10, 12 people, and it's this massive amount of food. And if it's only you or a spouse or a loved one that's staying together, sometimes that may be way too much for somebody to eat. So one of the things is, if you have an odd number of eggs, you can mix them in a bowl and can equal half with a scale or eyeball it. And then you can put the rest of the eggs in the fridge, or you can eat them or use them in another recipe as well. So if you are having spices and seasonings, sometimes it's better to use less than half and then add more if needed. So spices and seasonings, you kind of have to be careful with them depending on how potent they are. Some of them have a really robust flavor to them, and so you may need to kind of cut back and then taste as you go and see if you need to add more to it. because it's easier to add it in than it is to take it out. Okay, so be mindful of that as well. Also, um, this can be helpful, being cautious with those spices and seasonings, especially when it comes to salt. So if you're watching your salt or sodium intake, you can be mindful of that as well, using those spices and seasonings. And if you're using too much spice and seasonings in your recipes, sometimes what happens is it changes the consistency, it changes the texture of your recipe. And so it may be a lot more grainier. The flavor may be off, things like that. So it's better to kind of start off with less and then work your way up until you find that right taste that you're looking for. The other thing is, when you are cutting recipes, sometimes, you might have the question of, well, I'm cutting this recipe. Do I need to cut the cook time in half, or do I need to change the temperature of it? And no, you don't want to cook the temperature in half. So sometimes we think about this since we're cutting all the ingredients in half, that it means the cook time gets cut in half too. While the cook time can be slightly less than the original, it doesn't mean that it gets cut in half. Just reduce the cook time by several minutes and keep an eye on it to see how it cooks. Also, never change the temperature for the burner or even the recipe says. So if you're baking, if it says to bake at 375, make sure that you are baking it at 375 as well. Also, it's important that you use smaller pans or pots than the recipe calls for. So even if you decrease the size of pan, never change the type of pan, because it can either cook things faster or slower. So if it's calling for a cast iron skillet, still try to use a cast iron skillet for that as well. Number 5 is, make notes of the measurements that you have. So if you found a recipe that you've done, whether it's a family recipe or a recipe in a cookbook or online, and you print it off or have it in a cookbook and you kind of did the measurements and things like that, make sure that you write those down or put them in the notes or on the side, just so that you think you're going to remember, but a lot of times you don't. So it's important to kind of just make notes of those measurements of what you used and, kind of what it tasted like. Do I need to add a little bit more? Do I need to take some away? That type of thing. Number 6 is always be precise when baking. So while cooking, sometimes we don't have to use the exact measurements for things, and it's up to your taste. It's different with baking. So baking is a science. So you want to make sure that your measurements are precise, because it could mess up the integrity of the recipe or food that you're actually cooking. So I tell a lot of people when I do food demonstrations in my county that, cooking is one of those, you can be as creative as you want. You can do a lot of different things. You can add things, you can take things away, but when it comes to baking, there's a little bit more science behind it. And so if you forget something, your bread could be hard as a rock, or it could be, as big as a pillow. So just kind of be aware of that as well. So those savory recipes have more wiggle room with measurements. So because of this, you can often season as you go. So scale down on ingredients, add ingredients, etc. So savory recipes are easy to convert to make it taste the way that you want, compared to when you actually bake something. And then store leftovers in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 days. So if it's left longer, your chance of food poisoning can increase, because the bacteria also can grow during that. So just kind of be aware of that. If you have a lot more leftovers than you expected, consider actually breaking them up into freezer safe containers, and doing kind of some meal planning and freezing those leftovers so you can have something later on when you don't feel like actually cooking. And I'll talk a little bit about freezing here in a little bit as well. So reducing your food waste. So on that page 8 of the cookbook, you'll see that there's a lot of different tips for reducing your food waste, but also make sure you know what you like to eat. So what you have in your pantry, and plan those meals accordingly. And so if there's something off the wall that you're just like, I'm not really sure, just kind of be hesitant or really think about, am I willing to pay this amount of money for this ingredient that I may or may not use? There could be a substitution for that ingredient that could be at a lesser price. Because sometimes if you find those recipes, they have some different ingredients that can be costly, and you may not want to spend that amount of money on that. Also be exact with how much you need at the grocery store. This is also important to shop from your pantry. So I'd always tell people that, I'll be at the grocery store and I'll be thinking, okay, do I have garlic powder? Do I have onion powder? I think I do, but I can't really remember. And you grab that and you get home and you realize like, oh yeah, I already have like 5 containers of each one of those. So it's important, as you're making your grocery list, to go through your pantry to see what you have already, to see if you actually need any more garlic powder, onion powder, if you need paprika or anything like that, any of those spices or seasonings that you need. Also consider where you need to store your fruits and vegetables in those proper places. Do they need to be stored in the refrigerator? Can they be stored out on the counter? If you have a potato cellar, can you put them in there? Things like that. Also know where things are in your refrigerator and the proper places to store those things as well. And then a lot of us don't do this, but it is important, is to always label those leftovers with the date that it was prepared, just so that okay, well, this has been sitting in our refrigerator for 2 weeks now. I don't, we probably need to get rid of it that time. Or if it just kind of got stuffed back in the back of your refrigerator and you totally forgot it was there, and you don't remember when you prepared it, at least having that, what it's labeled on there can be very helpful with that as well. Now, I know I'm not sure, if y'all have heard about this in other classes, but this is also a good thing to bring up is what's with all the dates. And so there's always questions about this with individuals. What does it mean by best if used by or before, sell by, use by, expiration date, and those manufacturing dates? Okay. And so as you start looking through your pantry, your refrigerator, your freezer, you're going to see a lot of these on there. And so hopefully this can be helpful to you all to kind of decipher, is it something that I should keep, or is it something that maybe I need to get rid of, type of thing. And so this also helps with food waste. So the best buy or best use by, this refers to the quality of a food product, not its safety. So the food may not taste as fresh after this date, but it is still safe to eat. That use by date is typically found on perishable items such as meat, yogurt, and eggs. This indicates peak quality. So if stored properly, most cases a 1 week grace period applies. The sell by date tells a store how long to sell or how long to display or keep out a food product. If stored correctly, food is typically safe for several days to weeks after this date. The freeze by date is when to freeze the food by to get the optimal quality. So sometimes you'll see that on meats and things like that, where it'll say use by or freeze by, and it gives you that date. And then the expiration date is the only food that's legally required to have this is on infant formula. And then the manufacturing date is typically used by the manufacturer to indicate when the food was processed. So food products excluding infant formula should still be safe and wholesome after the date passes if handled properly until the time spoilage is evident, such as an off odor or actual signs of spoilage, such as mold, slime, or anything like that. So this information is, part of the USDA as well as the National Center for Food Preservation at UGA. Now, the other thing is, if you are making recipes that are, the full recipe, so it has the full amount, you're not having or thirding it, consider freezing it or meal prepping it. So I've gotten a lot into meal prepping my things, and it's very handy to do that. But also sometimes people don't like to meal prep because they're like, well, I don't want to eat the same thing 4 days in a row. But you can always interchange things and kind of make it a little bit different based off of the taste that you're wanting for that. But freezing is also a good way if you are making those full recipes, to keep it and then pull it out when you need it. Kind of making your own freezer type meals is important as well. So some benefits is that it's quick, it's easy, it's convenient, they're easy to serve, and it typically preserves the nutrient quality as well. So what causes the quality losses is those enzymes, the air, microorganisms, large ice crystals, and evaporation of moisture. So the enzymes are naturally occurring substances. This is typically found in plants that control the ripening process. So freezing only slows down, but does not stop the enzyme activity. So if you do not blanch your vegetables before freezing, you actually lose that quality. So think about corn, blanched versus unblanched. So I use the corn example because if you have forgotten to blanch your corn before, and you pulled it out of the freezer and you cook it up and it kind of tastes a little rancid, it's because most likely it wasn't blanched. And so I don't know if anybody in here has ever tasted anything rancid. If you have, put it in the chat. The best way to describe it is like baby throw up. So I know it sounds gross, but that is what it tastes like, what it smells like, that type of thing. Also air. So air is one thing that you want to try to get out of your okay, so somebody said that, yeah, it happened to their amazing summer corn 2 years ago. Yeah. And it's kind of sad, especially if you have really good corn that year. And you're like, oh, I want it for Thanksgiving or I want it for Christmas dinner. And yeah, it kind of gets disappointing when that happens. But going back to the air, so excluding air prevents enzyme reactions and oxidations, which actually causes surface browning. So this is very common in fruits, but also prevalent in potatoes. And if there is a lot of air trapped in your food containers when you are freezing things, it can cause freezer burn. And so freezer burn is more of a quality thing rather than a food safety thing as well. And so also the other thing to think about is ice crystals. So small ice crystals are ideal to keep the desired texture of the food. So larger ice crystals rupture the cells, causing it to be mushy and soft texture. So smaller crystals happen when frozen quickly and kept at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or lower constantly. So this is, what happens whenever, you might freeze something and you're going to pull it out and you're going to eat it. And then it's just a really mushy type of texture. It's because there probably was very large ice crystals and that's what punctured the cell walls. And so that's what causes the mushiness as well. And then a moisture evaporation, and this is kind of where the air comes in, but this is because of poor packaging will lead to loss of moisture, leading to loss of color, flavor, and texture. And if exposed for too long in the freezer will cause freezer burn, which is the drying out effect that you get on food as well. So some tips for packing your food. Making sure that you're using freezer safe packaging, making sure that it's that durable leak proof. It's easy to seal and easy to label. So a lot of times you can actually get more things in your freezer if you use freezer safe bags and things like that, because you can kind of flatten them, as you can see in this photo, and just kind of a lot of people will freeze them laying down, and then once they're frozen they will stack them like books. And so you're actually able to get a little bit more in your freezer that way. Also make sure that you are labeling your packaging. You think you're going to remember what's in there, but most of the time you're not. So label what's in there. Label if you know what kind of food it is, you know, what recipe it was, you know, is it lasagna? Is it carrots? Is it corn? Is it some kind of soup? You know, that type of thing. Make sure that you label what it is. Also cool or chill your food before filling in the packaging. Also package in quantities of single meal side serving. So this is kind of where that meals for you and me come in. So if you are able to package them in those smaller containers just for yourself and or your significant other, then it makes it a lot easier. So you can just kind of pull it out, you know, and save on food waste. Leaving that half-inch headspace in your food containers. And so you hear this also in canning, but it is important in freezing foods. That headspace allows for the expansion of the food. So sometimes there is water and there could be a lot of water in your food. And that's what causes the expansion. And so leaving that half-inch headspace at least, sometimes it'll be 1-inch headspace, allows that expansion so that the packaging doesn't pop open and cause freezer burn. If you're packaging food in bags, be sure to press out as much air as possible. You can also use one of those vacuum sealers. I've got one at home that I like to use, and I use it quite a bit, especially when I'm freezing things or if I find a good deal on meats or anything like that. And I want to break it up just for myself and my husband, then I will package it up into the smaller vacuum seal bags that way and just pull it out what I need at that time. And then also freezing your food as quickly as possible is important too. And then the type of containers is important as well. So those rigid versus flexible containers. Sometimes those flexible containers, and what I mean by that is those freezer safe bags. There is a difference between freezer safe bags versus storage bags. So freezer safe bags are a little bit more heavier duty. They don't, you know, they have that moisture barrier to them so that it doesn't allow moisture to escape or come in. So that's going to be important. So make sure that you are using freezer safe bags as well as freezer safe containers. And I'll go back to this slide here. This little icon here with the snowflake you'll see this on containers that indicate that it is freezer safe. So sometimes people have questions of why is there a little snowflake? Why is there a microwave? You know, things like that. And that's what that indication is that it is a freezer safe container if it has that little icon on the packaging. Also make sure that it's moisture and vapor resistant, that it's durable and leak proof, that it won't be brittle and crack at low temperatures, that it is resistant to oil, grease, or water. You protect your foods from absorption of off flavors or odors. It's easy to seal and it's easy to mark as well. And then your proper containers will protect the flavor, the color, the moisture content, and the nutrient value of your food items for that as well. So, is there any questions before I transition into kind of showing you all this recipe, this chicken pizza casserole recipe? So Abby, if you can keep an eye on that real quick, I'm going to transition to the kitchen real quick. So we can go over, I can show y'all the recipe. So this chicken pizza casserole recipe.
You got it. I got the chat handled.
All right, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So, what I'm going to show you is the chicken pizza casserole here. And so I'm going to turn my camera and I'm going to hand it over to my helper here, Sarah. So I have a couple things as well to show you. So different dishes. So for eating for one or two people is important. And using those proper dishes and things like that. So I brought a couple of different ones that I use at home when I am cooking for myself and my husband. So these little dishes here, the Corningware. And so this is typically what a lot of people will use, maybe something a little bit bigger than this if they are cooking for like a family of 4 to 6. But this is a good size for, if you're cooking lasagna or something like that for one or two people. And then you have the smaller one as well. So this is what they call the petite pan. And so this is really good for one person this size. So you can see the different sizes here um, as well as this type of Corningware. So there are the different sizes. So this is, bigger for those 6 to 8 type of recipes. This is probably more for the 4 to 6, and this is more for the 1 to 2. And that's French toast recipe that I was telling you about earlier. This is the good size for that raspberry French toast cup is this size, and this is the 15 ounce one as well. And of course, they have the circular ones too that you can use with that. And when a lot of times, sometimes recipes will call for a ramekin, and so this is what they consider a ramekin here. And so this is about a 4 ounce little dish here as well. And so this is good for one serving size. It doesn't look like much, but that is typically what a one serving size is for that. Now, the chicken pizza casserole recipe is 2 piece crock pot. Say that 5 times fast, but sometimes it's hard to find one, and you might just have a regular size one, and that is perfectly fine to do that. And so I'm gonna spray this with some cooking spray, just so to prevent it from sticking. Okay, and then it says to cut up your chicken into about 1 inch cubes. So you can cut it up with a knife, but the easiest way is actually to cut it with cooking or kitchen shears. So I'm going to take my chicken breast here and I'm going to cut it up into smaller sections. And some may be too large to get through. There we go. But you just kind of want to cut it up, make sure they're all like uniform sizes. And it's typically 2 chicken breasts for this particular recipe. If you're trying to cook for more people, you can add more chicken breasts. You can add more tomato sauce as well. Just making sure they're all kind of in that. So I'm cutting up the 2 chicken breasts, and you can see you want to make sure that your kitchen shears are fairly sharp or fairly new when you do this. Making sure that you do have a pair of kitchen shears that's specifically for meats. And then you'll have kitchen shears specifically to cut up vegetables. But this is an easier way, especially if you're an older adult and you have a hard time gripping things, or if you're having a hard time cutting things up. Sometimes it's just easier to use a pair of scissors. So that's what we're doing here. I'm all about trying to make things a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient. All right, I think our chicken is fairly cut it here. Y'all can see that. So I'm going to take our chicken. I'm going to stick it in the crock pot here. And mix it up. Take my gloves off. So I know on the recipe it had some high sodium, and so I found some low sodium or no salt added tomato sauce. You can use spaghetti sauce if you have spaghetti sauce at home. That's perfectly fine. That's kind of what we're doing here is we're making our own spaghetti sauce. But this is an easy way to do this as well. If you don't have any, but you happen to have tomato sauce, you can also use tomato paste. You just need to add a little bit of extra water into that. And so, like I said, with cooking, you can be as creative as you want. It does call for a bay leaf, so I'm gonna throw a bay leaf in there. It does call for some Italian seasoning. I'm just gonna open it up this way. Sprinkle that in there. And then a little bit of salt and pepper. So start off with a little bit and then work your way up into what you want it to be. Now, the recipe that I made earlier, I actually added a little bit of water because I wanted to actually serve it with some noodles. And so just gonna mix this up really good. And then I cooked it on low and I had it on low for about 3 hours. And then I added some noodles to it. And then just before the class, I added the mozzarella cheese as well. And then I'm going to show you all. So once we get this going and everything, this is what it's going to look like once it is done. So this is your chicken pizza casserole. I just added some eggshell noodles. That's what we had on hand. So like I said, I just kind of shot from the pantry what I had, and this is what so we had some noodles, shell noodles left over. And so this is, I just added the cheese on top. And so this is, probably a kid-friendly one. It smells really good. Everybody in our office that came in, they were like, what does that smell? But it is the chicken pizza casserole was the recipe. So it's really easy to kind of put together. It's something that you can probably put on in the morning on low, and then once you get home, add those noodles into it. Let it cook for another hour or so, and then add that cheese, and then you have your meal. You can add, have it with broccoli or something like that, a side salad. And so that's an easy way to do that as well. But I'm going to transition back to my computer. And so if there's any questions, Abby, if you can kind of keep track of that real quick, just give me a couple of seconds to get back into my office. And I'll answer any questions that y'all might have that you put in the chat. So question, were the noodles pre-cooked? No, they were not. I actually, so when I saw that the chicken was done, and there was a little bit of liquid left in there, I just threw the noodles in there. And they cooked for about an hour. And then they were ready. And then I put it on warm just so that it wouldn't overcook it. And I just added the mozzarella cheese on top. And so they all got to see what it looked like afterwards. So yeah, it's a really easy recipe. Some of the recipes are really easy to do. They're, like I said, I've done the vegetable frittata, I've done the French toast cups. And people have absolutely loved the recipes. But yeah, so y'all will get that follow-up email that will have the cookbook in there for you all to have. I think Serene wanted to send it to y'all beforehand, but I asked her to wait so I can kind of go through it with you all, but before you get it. But is there any other questions? I know there is a poll that they want to launch again. last one for this class. You're welcome. Thank y'all for coming this afternoon.